Hey everybody, welcome to your Yin Yoga practice for today. I want to give a special welcome to all of our members at theyogamat.com. Your support definitely keeps all these classes going. So go ahead and head over to your mat, grab a blanket, maybe a block, bolster if you have one, and we're going to get started with this class as we focused on the hips. Okay, make your way over to your mat, and the first prop you're going to want to have is a blanket. And when we have the blanket here, we're just going to spread it out at least to the edges of your mat. It might go out a little bit beyond that. You just want to keep your knees on top of it here the whole time. And then we're going to begin with tadpole. So when we start to come into a yin pose, you want to take it slow. We're going to be targeting the inside of the thighs. That's the main area you're after. Maybe getting into your back here as well. So begin to slide the knees apart until you start to feel a little resistance in those areas. The toes can stay together if you want, or you can separate them a bit. And then again, gently start to press yourself back. And you can lower down just as far as you need to get into this. We're only trying to put small, mild to moderate amounts of stress here into one or both of these areas. So mild to moderate, we're talking about, if you think of a scale of 0 to 10, 0, you wouldn't feel anything at all. 10, you'd be in a whole lot of pain. So mild to moderate, somewhere around a 2 to 4, you could say. Yeah. So after you've been in a pose for a little bit, just kind of check in. See if it's still in that target area. Make any adjustments you need to. Maybe you take your hands a little bit further if you want to add more stress to it. And you can always back off here if you need to. And then when we talk about stress versus stretch in yin yoga, you want to apply stress because yin's going to target your connective tissue, your fascia, your joints, your ligaments. So, joints, ligaments, are some things that you don't really want to stretch. You're not going to stretch your joints. So that's maybe it's semantics, but that's why we say stress. You're applying little bits of stress to these areas, and again, not necessarily trying to stretch them. Ligaments aren't really something that you want to elongate. But again, a little bit of stress is okay, because if you don't do anything, then things start to atrophy and start to lose it. So again, I've been here a little bit. If you want, you can again make some adjustments here, maybe separating the feet. Again, in general, that's going to add a little bit more stress to those areas. And in any pose that we go through today, you don't have to be set up like exactly like I am. Chances are you're probably not. Your pose might look a little bit different here. Maybe the knees are wider apart, maybe they're closer together. Again, that's why we talk about the specific areas that we're targeting, and again, just that little bit of stress that we're trying to apply to it. And as we're here, you want to just try to work through a normal breath. So Ujjayi breath builds heat in the body. Yin's going to work best when everything's cold, where you haven't worked out beforehand. You don't want to get anything to warm up. The Yin's much more effective, again, when your muscles are cold. So that's why we're not going to use Ujjayi breath. If you find that you're just naturally going into that, that could be a sign that the pose is a little bit too intense and you want to back off of it some. It's our time. Slowly start to work your way back up. So come up onto your hands and your knees. We'll just slide the knees in a little closer together, or all the way to touch if you want. And then child's pose will be our counter. So the knees just in close enough that you're no longer getting that stress in that target area. And some of these counter poses will be passive like this. Others will be more active. We'll add a little bit of movement to it. And then you can go ahead and come up. We're going to move into Sphinx. So for Sphinx, if you want, you can take your blanket and then just place it long ways across your mat. So you got a little bit of padding there. If you have a bolster, you could use your bolster for Sphinx as well. And we would just set that there to the top of the mat. So let me show you Sphinx without the prop first. And you'd lie down. You could start with your elbows forward of the shoulders. That'll be a little bit less stress. If that's not enough, then you could work your elbows back so that they're underneath the shoulders. Sphinx is going to target your lower back. And then if you have the bolster, your option here is to lie down over it. So you pull it underneath your chest, and you can take your arms out over it. So if that gets into it, if that's in that mild to moderate range, then you could just stay here. So we call this our extra yin version, because we're really letting the prop do all of the work here. You might just close your eyes and settling in. If you're not on the bolster and you're on your elbows, and you can let your shoulder blades start to draw toward one another, as if you're just kind of trying to relax into a little bit more. We're going to try to stay in Sphinx a little bit longer than we did that first pose, but don't feel like you have to stay in it for the whole time. You can come out at any point you need to. You may want to lessen it temporarily by coming out. You can stay there as long as you want. Maybe you come back into it, or again, you can come out altogether. And you may notice a little bit of soreness in some yin poses, but soreness usually comes on right away in yin, and it's temporary, doesn't last very long, and it should be done. All that soreness should be over with by the time we go through that counter pose. So again, just a normal part here of yin. It's kind of related to if you were going to exercise, maybe you're lifting weights, or maybe you had a more intense yoga practice and you get sore the next day. Same type of thing. In yin, it just comes on right away. So while we're here in Sphinx, if the pose gets a little bit too mild, again, time can change the pose. It can add or take away stress. So if you need to add a little bit more stress here to your lower back, you can bend your knees. And that's a pretty simple way to get into the back a little bit more. And if you try any of these, again, your pose isn't static. You can let the legs go and come back into that mild to moderate range. And if it gets too mild, you can bend the knees again. So we're just about halfway through the pose, just so you got a general idea of how long we're going to be here. So take a second here, check in, and make any adjustments that you need to, including coming out if it gets to be too much. Start time. Go ahead and start to lower yourself down. If you're on that bolster, we'll just slide the bolster away. And then cross your forearms in front, and then you can rest your head on it. You know, a little bit of soreness there in the back is completely normal in yin. We're going to take enough rest that hopefully it's gone before we start to move on. And start to make your way back up into a tabletop. And you want to move slowly as you're getting there. And then we're going to take child's pose again as another part of the counter. So just try to let that lower back relax, resting back toward the heels. And you can go ahead and make your way back up into that tabletop. And we're going to move to Swan. So you can keep your blanket here if you want to. You probably just want to take it up more toward the front of your mat, so when you come into it, the knees will stay on it. So starting from table, we're going to slide this right knee forward. You want to take it toward the outside of the wrist, and it can stay tucked in a little bit closer to get started with. And then begin to slide this left knee a little bit further back. So we make sure that there's no stress in the knee. We want to keep all of it here to this outer hip and into the glute. If this is where it's at, then you can stay on your forearm, stay on your hands, or lower to your forearms. You can go all the way down if you want, in keeping your about 2 to 4 range there, mild to moderate. If it bothers your knee, then I want you to take this alternative pose. So we call this one collapsed swan. You're going to lean into your right hip, and then about a 90-degree bend in both knees. And you want to lean as far over into this right side as it takes for this knee to drop down and touch the floor. And then from there, if there's no pain in the knees, then you can start to fold over this right leg. So again, it's just an alternative pose. It's going to allow you to get into the hip, but again, keep that knee safe. So you can take collapsed swan if you want to. You can take a regular sleeping swan. Sleeping swan, you could potentially also target that left hip flexor. So I'll be a little bit more quiet here as we're going through the pose. Again, come out at any point that you need to. You don't have to stay here until the whole time is up. And just check in, come out if you need to. I'm just making sure that that's still just in that outer right hip. And take your time, slowly start to work your way back up. And we want to lean all the way over into that right side. Bring the left leg around in front. So this will be our active counter that we're going to take. Let's take your hands behind you and then bring a little bit of movement back in. You want to bounce the knees up and down, sway the ankles side to side, and point and flex the feet. And just a little bit of movement until you feel like things are kind of getting unstuck again. And then let's move into the other side. So we'll start from that tabletop, just like we did on the right side. We'll bring this left leg forward, take the right leg back. And again, don't worry about the range of motion or even the pose that you did on the other side. Do what's best for this left side. So remember, clapped swan's the one you want to take if there's any sort of stress in that knee. Don't want to ignore it. So over the course of these next few minutes that we're going to be here, again, feel free to make any adjustments you need to. And you might start up a little bit higher, and then as time goes on and the pose gets a little bit milder, then you can work your way down a little bit further. And then if it gets too intense, the longer that you stay, again, that's when you start to back off of it. time, slowly work your way back up. And lean all the way over into that left side. Bring the right leg around. And same counter pose, or if you'd rather do windshield wipers, you could take that counter, feet to the edges of the mat, and the knees dropping from one side to the next. Yeah, just a little bit of movement there. And then we'll move to relaxation. If you used your bolster during class, you could use it as part of Shavasana too as well. So bring it in a little bit closer. And then when you lie down on your back, you'll have the bolster underneath your knees. And it just helps the lower back relax a little bit easier into the floor. The palms face up either side of your hips. Let's close your eyes. Be here for just these last few minutes of class. If you've got a little bit more time that you can spend in rest today, then stay there just as long as you'd like. Otherwise, you're getting close to that half-hour mark. You can start to make your way back up to a comfortable seated position. Bring your hands to your heart, closing your eyes. Thanks for practicing. Have a great rest of your day. Namaste. See you next time. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that class. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to get a new short form class every week. And if you like what you see and you want to support me, Go become a member at theyogamat.com. You'll get unlimited live virtual classes every week and access to our on-demand library with over 500 classes in it. Have a great day. Namaste.